Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. Back again with another short video. And I'm actually thinking of going to a more simplistic format such as this. If you guys prefer the original format with the intro music and all that, let me know. And if you guys prefer this more simplistic, minimalist format, likewise let me know. I've been mulling over some ideas over the past couple weeks, and they're very simple ideas. They're ideas that are woven into the Mgtow framework, the Mgtow tapestry of understanding. They're ideas that we all were presented with early on in our Mgtow journey. But I think we have the tendency to want that next epiphany, that next aha moment, like we received in the beginning. Many of us remember the sense of peace and relief and jovial feeling that we got when we understood exactly what had been going on most of our lives. You see, a lot of us were plagued with this idea of what women want and why relationships are the way that they are. And then once we gained that Mgtow knowledge and the Mgtow understanding, it all made sense to us. It all came together. We were able to put the puzzle pieces in the right place. And so I think there's a tendency for us to want to experience that again. Many of us have gotten bogged down in the simple. We understand the concepts, the frameworks, the foundations, the very basic, the basic building molecules, if you will, of why things are the way they are and why Mgtow makes so much sense to us. And so there's that tendency to want to experience that enlightenment yet again. And in doing so, I think we miss out on some of the deeper meanings of some of the more simple things that we've already heard and understand. And those are things I keep coming back to time and time again. Because even though these kernels of knowledge that are out there, these higher, more esoteric viewpoints and understandings and enigmas that we unravel and find out even more about female nature and find out even more about the nature of human relationships and human companionship, even though those things are astronomical in their value and interesting and can really aid one in their life, it's those basic things that keep us afloat and keep our sails in the wind and keep us going our own way. One of those being that she's not yours, it's just your turn. And myself, as I'm sure many of you others out there can attest to, is that this is a very basic and honest truth. She's not yours, it's just your turn. And you never know when that turn's going to be up, and you never know when the turn is going to be over. And so it begs the question, why place any long-term value in a female? Why think that a relationship is going to last forever? Why be foolish enough to enter into something such as marriage, knowing that she's not yours, it's just your turn? Maybe your turn's for 20 years. Maybe your turn's for that golden anniversary. Or maybe your turn's only a few months, a few weeks, a few days, and possibly even a few hours. When you understand something like that, you understand that the idea of meeting a woman that's going to be there for you, the idea of meeting a woman that's going to be in there through thick and thin, through the long haul, is one akin to leprechauns, unicorns, and sprites. I mean, it's just unrealistic to think that any one woman is going to stick around long term. And there's many factors as to why they won't stick around long term. But all you need to understand is that she's not yours. It's just your turn. No need to be angry about it. No need to be upset about it. It is simply what it is. It's as simple as walking outside and noticing that the sky is blue and the grass is green. I don't need to understand why. I don't need to understand, light prisms and atmosphere and everything else to explain why the sky appears to be blue. I simply need to understand that it is. And in the same way, you simply need to understand no matter what you do, no matter how much money you make, no matter how in shape you may appear to be, no matter what, she's not yours, it's just your turn. And that's because in most women's minds, there's always someone better out there. There's always somebody that has more money. There's always somebody that's in better shape than you. There's always somebody that has a better comedic sense, has traveled to more countries, has done X, Y, or Z. Now, whether or not the person is actually better, that's not the point. All that matters is that in her mind, the person is better. This is, of course, summed up in the word hypergamy. There's a word for such behavior. There's a word to describe such things that men have understood for thousands of years, generation through generation. It simply is hypergamy. She has to optimize her chance at the most resources and the best genes. Again, no need to be mad about it, but one simply need to understand that that's the reality. Another thing, whatever a woman says is completely meaningless most of the time, because whatever a woman feels in the moment is true for that moment and that moment alone. There is no longevity with what women say. There's no longevity with what they feel. Now, how many of us have been in a relationship or dated in the past where the woman told us that she loved us, where the woman made us feel through word or action that she would be there through thick and thin, for better, for worse, sickness and in health? Sound familiar? And is it any surprise that the majority of divorces are initiated by women? We go back to the hypergamy thing. Is it any surprise that women can say one thing on the wedding day and 10 years later decide they never really felt it and they never really meant it? That's why it's dangerous to hang or base anything off of what a woman says. A woman may say she loves you one day, and the next day she's already with somebody else. Again, women feel in the moment. There's no longevity to their emotions, their feelings, and there's no longevity to their word. Their word is not their bond. Their word is simply what they feel today. But you know, there is something else that I have noticed. I've simply been more happy doing my own thing anyway. You see, what tends to happen most of the time when a guy enters into a relationship, I'm seeing it happen right now with a coworker where he is selling everything he owns. Notice I said everything he owns, so that he can marry this woman, so that he can buy this house that this woman wants, so that this woman can have her house, not his, because most assuredly it will not be his when the divorce inevitably happens. So he is selling all the things that he owns, all the things that he enjoys. In a matter of speaking, in a sense, he's selling pieces of himself, because these are things that are associated with hobbies and things that he enjoyed, that gave him meaning, that gave him an identity outside of work, that gave him an identity outside of provider role. And in a sense, maybe that's been the plan all along. And in the end, maybe what women have wanted all along, maybe their purpose in having men sell off everything they have, is to strip them of all identity so that they can be no more than workhorse provider. I have always been more happy doing my own thing, as I'm sure most of you have been as well. Because inevitably what ends up happening is You begin to conform to what she wants. You begin to become who she wants. And in the end, she can have no respect for you, for how easily you were molded and how malleable your character was. So then, when she finds someone she deems better, when your term is up, when she no longer feels like she loves you, you're left looking at someone in the mirror you no longer recognize. You're left looking at someone in the mirror who's no longer you. And then your own distaste, your own disgust for yourself, for allowing yourself to be molded and manipulated like that, is worse than any scorn she could bring upon you. And so this is the reality we're faced with. It all comes down to one simple word. Her not being yours, it just being your turn. Her finding someone she deems better, whether they are or whether they aren't. And what she feels in the moment, whether she loves you today and is gone tomorrow. All summed up in one simple word: hypergamy. One simple word expresses so many complex and so many truth-filled statements. It unveils a whole world that before was covered over, lost to the sands of time and the wisdom of the ancients, but here today to benefit those brave enough to go their own way yet again. Guys, the choice is simple. Go your own way or don't. That's the choice before you today.